What's up, everyone? Good morning, and welcome back to Shaw Locals Bears Insider Podcast. I am Kyle Nabors, back here along with Sean Hammond. And Sean, we got actual football to talk about this weekend, man.
Yeah, it's week one. We're here, Kyle. We made it. Everybody listening, you guys made it. You made it through the off season, the 6 months or whatever of no football. We are here.
It's weird because we go through training camp and everything, and then I think it's because of the extra week between the end of preseason and the start of the regular season. It just sneaks up on me more than it used to be. We got to Lions Chiefs last night, and I was just like, holy crap! There's an NFL game that counts tonight.
That first Thursday game of the season always feels a little bit like it's not real. You're like, I forgot how to do this. We're back. There's real football. What do I do? What do I do with my hands? It's a whole new experience.
What do I do? Yeah, and you could tell it's week one is always weird in the NFL. You could tell it last night too. Some sloppy football being played on both sides of the ball. I did enjoy Jared Goff's answer after the game though. The post game, the Lions win the game. They're 1-0. It's a good win, obviously, against the defending Super Bowl champion.
For them, yeah.
Yeah, but the question after is what does this win mean for the city of Detroit? And Jared Goff was like, it means we're 1-0. And I was like, yes, that is the correct answer.
The city of Detroit has changed forever.
Yeah, I mean, what if they end up going 2-15? How many times have we seen upset wins in week one? I think both of us feel better about this Detroit team than we have in the past. But
yeah.
Come on, people. Let's slow down with anointing the Detroit Lions or saying that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to take a step back. The overreaction in the NFL is always wild,
especially week one. And that's the thing. We're gonna, as we're gonna segue into Bears Packers, of course, here. But it's week one. Teams are showing stuff they didn't show last year, and obviously there's new players on both teams. It's gonna be weird things are gonna happen this week, and let's just pump the brakes and not overreact to any one particular team or play or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive into this weekend. We got Bears Packers, Sean, and I was looking around this morning at the betting line because I wanted to see if maybe Vegas had a better idea on this than I did. But what I was looking at, I essentially seen the Bears as essentially a 1-point favorite, and it left me with the feeling that Vegas doesn't really have any better of an idea than I do when it comes to this Bears-Packers game. And not just this Bears-Packers game, it's just there's so many question marks about both of these teams that until we start getting a sample size, I really don't know what to make of them. And putting together a week one preview seems extra difficult for these teams.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what to expect from either one of these teams. And, it starts with the big obvious one in Jordan Love in Green Bay. You got a quarterback who's been on the bench for 3 years, one start under his belt, a couple other games here and there and cleanup duty or whatever. And not a big sample size to go off of. So, I don't know what to expect from this Packers team. I do think Matt LaFleur's offense is going to look somewhat similar to the way it has in the past. But, you got a little bit more mobile, younger guy in Jordan Love. That could change things.
That's the big thing to me is I expect them to run Matt LaFleur's offense similar to what we've seen the last couple of years. I wonder if we're going to see more of a RPO style offense, though.
Yeah.
With Jordan Love at obviously taking over for Aaron Rodgers.
And that's the thing. When Aaron Rodgers was in this offense the last few years, even though you don't necessarily think of him as a mobile guy, they got him moving a little bit. There were times when he would use his legs, not to the extent of a Justin Fields, but enough to shift the pocket or whatever. And you add a younger guy who can move a little bit better, and I think that Matt LaFleur is going to have some different wrinkles that he can throw in there.
Rick Gonzalez checking in live with us this morning. Rick, good to have you on, man. Says good morning and had said if Kansas City had wide receivers, they would have won. Yeah, the drops were an issue last night. Quickly going back to that game, talking about early season football, drops were an issue. Some of the coaching decisions on both sides of the ball. I mean, you see Kansas City going for it. Fourth down, deep in their own territory late in that game. It was an interesting choice with all 3 timeouts and the 2-minute warning. You had Detroit at one point punting at Kansas City's 40-yard line on 4th and 3, Sean. Always fun to get the NFL back. No, I want to give a shout out to Adam Hogue. I literally laughed out loud when I saw it when he was talking about football Twitter reacting to some of the Kansas City offensive play calls last night, and him tweeting a gif of Matt Nagy saying Bears essentially Bears Twitter knows exactly what's happening right here.
Right. That was one of my first thoughts too, and I haven't particularly followed what's going on with the Chiefs. Who's calling the plays down there? Is that Matt? Is that Andy Reid? What's happening? Somebody in the chat maybe let us know.
Yeah, I take it from the reaction last night. I can't say that I've paid close enough attention, but from the reaction of people online last night, I take it that Matt Nagy is back calling plays to start the year. That's kind of been the thing with Andy and him over the years. Like, what was it? Andy Reid gave up the play calling to Matt Nagy the year that they ended up playing really well, and like Matt Nagy gets the Bears job, and then he goes back there as quarterback coach. But I'm pretty sure Andy called the plays last year, but maybe I don't know. That's just one of those situations where there seems to be a bit of tutelage. It worked for them. It didn't work in Chicago, but it didn't work last night either.
Well, it works when you have Andy Reid you can lean on. I mean, I think that helps.
Well, that and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce.
Well,
you could tell they definitely missed having Travis Kelce last night.
Rick says that Nagy was calling plays last night, so
yeah, that it looked like it. I mean, but anyway, so if Rick is joining us live this morning, and if you would like to join us live, or if you're on any of our Facebook pages or on Shaw Local's YouTube page, you can jump into the comments, leave us a question, leave us a comment, help us guide the show. We appreciate it. If you are on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment after if you're not watching this live to help other people find the show. You can find us on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, at Sean_Hammond, at Kyle Nabors, at Bears_Insider. You can find all of Sean's work along with Mark Silverman's columns, Jake Barlson, and Michael Dwojak's work here for Shaw Local Bears Insider podcast. You can go to shawlocal.com to find all of that. Sean, you on Instagram as well, right?
Yeah, Bears_reporter on Instagram and Threads.
and Threads and wherever else we find to get you on this year. So let's
Kyle, the season's here. We're back twice a week, right?
We are back twice a week now that we're getting back.
We're going to be here, guys.
Yes. We'll be back early next week to talk Bears Packers, and let's get into that a bit more, Sean. Where do you want to start with it? I know how about this? We had a question from Rick. Let's get to that early because really, you can go multiple ways with it. Rick says if you had to give a percentage on if the Bears can stop the Packers run game, what would it be? To me, if we stop the run, we should win this game. What do you think, Sean?
I kind of agree with Rick that is like the sneaky, like good game within the game to watch is the Bears defensive line versus Packers run game, because the Packers have been able to run the ball really well since Matt LaFleur got here, and they've done that well against the Bears in particular, and we know how many holes that Bears defense had a year ago, and I think you look at what they've done, especially at the defensive tackle spot. You brought in a big dude with Andrew Billings, and then you got those two rookies who are going to be coming off the bench, Javon Dexter and Zach Pickens. We're going to learn really quick where this Bears defense is at in terms of have they improved against the run, because they were one of the worst teams in the league last year, if not the worst. I'd have to go back and look.
If I recall correctly, too, the first matchup early in the season between these two teams last year, Aaron Jones ran absolutely wild.
Aaron Jones went wild up in Lambeau, and that's what I would be afraid of, especially when you got a young quarterback like Jordan Love. The best way to ease him into starting in the NFL is to lean on your run game and let them do the work.
I don't expect the Bears to struggle offensively and fall behind in this game, but if they do, that is not a good scenario, because I do think the Packers are going to have success running the ball against this Bears defense. I think they're going to get better as the year goes along against the run. I just think you have so many new pieces up front, particularly with the young guys on the defensive line. I really like what they did at linebacker. I think that's going to make a big difference right away against the run defense. I just think it's going to take some time to get everything working here. I expect that they're going to struggle a bit against the run in week one.
I would think in this matchup that they will. And that's one of the reasons why I'd be a little bit worried about this game if I was a Bears fan. I like that you mentioned the linebackers, though. I mean, you watch film on TJ Edwards, and that he's a guy who just his instincts are so good, and he can plug up those holes really quickly from that linebacker spot. And you can tell that he has a really, really good natural understanding of football and where the ball is going. And that's an element, him and Tremaine Edmonds, that the Bears just did not have for the second half of last year.
I was going to say, particularly after the Roquan Smith trade and the last month of the season when Jack Sanborn was on the shelf, it just made it even more obvious. There was just too many times where you saw running backs get to that second level, and there were not linebackers in position. I mean, you saw safeties having to come back up into the box way too often and try and stop guys, usually 5 or 6 yards past the line of scrimmage, and you're just not going to win a lot of games when you're having those type of plays happen as often as they were last year.
No, you're not. And Kyle, I don't know if you saw that Nicholas Morrow, former starting linebacker for the Bears last year, did not make the active roster for the Eagles. He is on the practice squad.
Did he really?
Yeah. So, I mean, that kind of just shows you how much, what a dearth of talent there was for the Bears last year.
Yeah. How do you think the rookies are going to perform up front on that defensive line?
I would think that there's going to be some growing pains. I mean, they're both young guys. They're both, Gervon Dexter's really young and relatively inexperienced, a couple of years in college, and then he jumped to the NFL. And the thing with that too is like they're asking both these guys to play a little bit differently than they did in college. And there's going to be a learning curve there. And there might be times where they that first steps in the wrong direction, or they're not on the same page with the guy next to them, and that could lead to a big hole in the run game. I think you're gonna see good and bad with any of these rookies. I would expect that, whether they're on offense or on defense.
We saw throughout the preseason the Bears had a huge list of injuries throughout the preseason. We expected that number to go way down like it did last year when we got to week 1. It did. Only a few guys this week we really have had any kind of questions. Are Robert Phillips checking in this morning. Robert, great to have you back on the show. He asked, what's the latest with injuries? Are Brisker and Jackson full participation yet, Sean?
Yes, Brisker and Jackson both were full participants on Thursday. We're still waiting for, we'll find out today, Friday, what if there's any other developments there. Let me pull up the full list here. I got it right here. The curious one yesterday was Nate Davis did not practice for a personal reason, but he was also there. He was present. We all saw him hugging Matt. I just said Matt Nagy. God, why? This is what happens when we talk about Matt Nagy at the start of the show.
The amount of times I'm terrified that I'm going to type Ryan Pace instead of Ryan Poles in a headline. Every single day.
He gave a little hug with Matt Eberflus, and he was there. So I mean, you hope he's going to be back Friday and it's not going to be an issue. The only other guys of note, DeMarcus Walker has been dealing with a calf injury, but he was also a full participant. So it's looking like you're going to have your full defense, if all things stay the same on Friday. And then Mercedes Lewis got an extra day of rest. He's like 1,000,000 years old, so that's not a concern. And Dylan Cole with a hamstring injury did not practice, but he's pretty much been out for about a month. I don't think we'll see him on Sunday.
So there was a game. This game had to be like 5 years ago now. I was at the Soldier Field press box sitting next to Arthur Arkish, and Mercedes Lewis had 3 touchdowns in the game. And I remember Arthur and I looking at each other. It might have been a game in England. It might have been in London, because I think it was like a game where we were settling into the press box at 11 a.m. That game was already wrapping up. But I remember looking at Arthur and him and I looking at each other going like, Mercedes Lewis is still in the NFL. And then here we are 5 years later, and Mercedes Lewis still in the NFL now with the Bears.
It's funny because Kyle, I wrote about Robert Tonyan back when he was breaking into the league. He's a local guy, and I went down to Soldier Field when the Packers were in town, and Mercedes Lewis was one of those guys I talked to after that game, trying to get the elder statesman point of view, and here we are 5 years later, he's still doing it.
Absolutely, man. The guy just keeps on taking. He's a great blocker. There's a reason he's been able to stick around in the league as long as he has, and he's been really good in the locker room from all accounts. Yeah,
he's a great interview, and you're right. He's morphed himself into this. He could always block, but when he started getting a little bit older and maybe the speed was a touch slower than it used to be, he's still found a way to carve out a role on teams, and that's pretty impressive.
Absolutely. Shaw Locals Bears Insider Podcast is sponsored by Ken Nelson's Auto Group, proudly serving the Sauk Valley area for over 55 years. Ken Nelson Auto Group offers 10 new vehicle franchises in one convenient location right here in Dixon, Illinois. Shop a great selection of new and pre-owned vehicles at KenNelsonAuto.com. Sean, I do want to get into the Nate Davis stuff a bit more. What the hell, man? Like, I just like, what is going on with Nate Davis?
Yeah, it's been part of me wasn't surprised when I saw that he was listed on the injury report as a personal reason. In terms of like, you think back on that press conference he had like 2 or 3 weeks ago when he wasn't really answering any questions about his injury, and you're just like, what is going on with this guy? Obviously, he was in and out, mostly out of practice during training camp. Came back a couple of times. I don't know, man. I mean, I don't want to speculate on anybody's personal issues. If he's got something going on at home, like that's very possible that's affecting his ability to work.
Well, I'll say this too, and this is, as you said, this is purely speculation. But we're talking about a guy that just signed what, a $30 million contract?
3 years, 30 million. Yep.
Yeah, 3 years, $30 million. NFL teams do their homework. Like, they're not just giving out money, $30 million for a guy that they expect to be a starting player on their team without doing homework, right?
Right.
That doesn't mean something can't slip through the cracks. But you mentioned like something at home, something that crossed my mind, and we're just speculating here, like mental health, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I see people, and understandably, asking questions, and those are questions that should be asked, and honestly, like, fans deserve some kind of an answer. But like, people just, I've seen people jump to the conclusion of he's looking to get out of playing, and I'm hesitant to go that route. You know what I'm saying?
There's so much we don't know, and if he doesn't want to talk about it, like, all you can do is ask, and if he says I'm not going to go there, like, that's kind of it. Like, if it's a personal thing, yeah, this might be a situation where maybe a few months from now he opens up about it, and we do figure out what was going on, but it also might not be. I that's totally up to him.
It's a real concern, and anyone who is like, listen, if they got this wrong and Nate Davis isn't ready to go week 1 or ready to play this season, that's certainly a knock on Ryan Poles and the pro scouting staff, which already is starting to put together, a list of things that you can question on the pro scouting side for all of the development on some of these younger players. There's not been a lot to like so far when it comes to free agent acquisitions and even trades. So the Nate Davis thing adds an extra layer of concern to that. It's just, we just don't really know what's driving it.
Yeah. And, I'm really curious to see if Nate's back practicing today and if we see him on Sunday, because at the end of the day, it might not be that big of a deal if he's not missing games. That's really what matters. Obviously, you want the guy there for practice. I guarantee you Matt Eberflus wants him in there practicing. But if he's dealing with some stuff off the field and he can still get ready for Sunday and do his job, like, it's really not going to matter. So I feel like we're going to have to wait and see whether he's playing on Sunday. And then, if not, then I guess it becomes an issue.
It's great to have so many people live with us this morning in the chat. If you are on Facebook or YouTube, you can jump into the comments and ask us a question or leave a comment. We appreciate that, everyone who does. Esox Angler checking in with us here says, are you going to watch the offensive line or defensive line more closely on Sunday, Sean?
Oh man, that's tough. That's a good one. I'm gonna go with the defensive line just because I'm so curious about those 2 rookies we were talking about earlier. I'm curious about the defensive end position. Yannick Ngakoue is obviously a proven guy. He's a good addition, but do they have anything else? DeMarcus Walker had 7 sacks last year. That was his breakout season. He had never done that before. So, is it a blip on the radar, or is it something that he can reproduce? And then, yeah, some of those, you look at the second line, especially at defensive end, you're talking about Dominique Robinson, Rasheem Green. What are you going to get out of those guys? I don't know that you would necessarily be expecting big things from them. And that's still a position where, you look big picture beyond this season. That's a position where the Bears still have to get better. And you really want to know, like, is Dominique Robinson going to provide anything for you? We saw him do that in week 1 last year, and then he was pretty quiet the rest of the season. So I have a lot of questions about the defensive line. I have fewer questions on the offensive line.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised you say that because I'm the opposite of you.
Not that I don't have questions. It's just I feel like Cody Whitehair, rock solid. Braxton Jones, I'm not concerned about. I know that, it wasn't a perfect rookie season last year, but I feel like he's going to be even better this season. That's just my hunch, I guess.
I mean, so here, let's ask that question. So I have questions about the offensive line.
Yeah.
I felt pretty good when we got to training camp and you started looking from left or right across the line, right?
Yeah.
And then training camp happened. Nate Davis barely practices. Tevin Jenkins once again down with an injury. Lucas Patrick has had trouble staying on the field. So now you're looking at a situation. What are we looking at, Sean, right now from left to right? What are we looking at most likely for week one?
Yeah, that's a good point, Kyle. Let's go through this. We got Braxton Jones at left tackle, Cody Whitehair at left guard, Lucas and Cody, of course, was playing center all of training camp. So they shifted him over to left guard. Lucas Patrick is now in at center. Nate Davis, if he's playing, is at right guard.
I love that you couldn't even, you said the name and immediately were like, should I have even said it?
And then Darnell Wright, your rookie right tackle, number 10 overall pick, is in there at right tackle. I mean, the Nate Davis thing does kind of throw this into disarray. If he's not able to go, then you're probably looking at Jatari Carter coming up from the second string.
I mean, so before the injuries, I had questions on the offensive line, or I was more interested in watching the offensive line just because I wanted to see how the young offensive tackles were going to develop early in the season. Wanted to make sure Tevin Jenkins was able to make that switch over to the left side after doing well at right guard, and then, so now you have the switches. You bring Cody Whitehair back over to left guard. Lucas Patrick goes in at center. You signed Lucas Patrick last year to play center. He played, one half at the center position last year?
One quarter.
One quarter at the center position last year. When he did play, he played at the guard position, really struggled last year with the Bears. I mean, maybe he plays better at the center position, the play, where they, obviously signed him last year. I'll be honest. I don't feel particularly confident about this starting five going into week one.
I'm coming at it from the perspective of, and maybe I shouldn't be thinking that Nate Davis is going to play because obviously he didn't practice last year. But if Nate Davis is in there, I'm feeling okay with Lucas Patrick at center, especially if it's not a long-term thing. I feel like you can get through a few weeks with him at center. You're right, though. We don't have the film to go off of him at center. We have one quarter in that Patriots game when he played center, and then he, suffered another injury and was out of the game, and Sam Mustipher was back in there. So I just feel like the fact that they brought him here to play center, to me, that should mean that, this is his spot. This is where he's going to be at his best.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's got to be the hope.
It's fair to be concerned. I mean,
and I think maybe it's let's see. Alan checked in here. Alan Dunlap checking in this morning with, if defense improves and running game is solid, they will win more than 3 games. I don't see how passing will improve if offensive line doesn't stay healthy. And that second sentence, that second comment is the crux of this, right? Because we have to know what exactly Justin Fields is by the end of this year. And you need to give him absolutely every opportunity to prove that on his own and not be running for his life behind a leaky offensive line.
Yeah. No, I agree. Big picture, that's what you're trying to do this season. You're trying to see if he can make the necessary leap as a passer. That's really what this whole season is about. But at the same time, you look at it from Matt Eberflus's perspective, and he's just trying to win games. If they have to adjust what they're doing, because the offensive line is got injuries and issues, they're going to do that. They're going to do whatever they got to do to win. And I still, through all of this, feel like, the Bears are still going to be a run first team. I know everyone's excited about DJ Moore and Justin Fields' potential. They're not going to change their identity just because they feel like they got a good receiver in there, and they hope that Justin Fields is going to be able to throw the football a little bit better.
Ideally, you're looking at an offense that looks very similar to the San Francisco 49ers offense. right? You're looking at
Yeah, that's the goal. That's kind of what
yeah.
they're molding
You're looking
themselves
at multiple running backs. You're looking at wide receivers that are willing blockers. You're looking at wide receivers that are able to take advantage of space. I mean, that was one of the big things. You saw that in the preseason. You haven't seen the Bears reveal a lot of how they're going to use their screen game, but you did see that with DJ Moore in the preseason. I expect we're going to see a lot of quick action, a lot of screen game from this offense this year.
And I mean, I can tell you, just watching every practice during training camp, they spent a lot of time on that. That was a big focus of what they were doing. So yeah, I would fully expect them to keep doing that. And you saw how successful they were in the preseason. The few big plays that they had came on plays like that. And so yeah, I would expect that as well, Kyle.
Sports Chicago Style says, new channel, who dis, formerly known as Renewable and Rechargeable Review. Triple R, man, good to have you back.
Oh man, a rebrand. Triple R is rebranded.
Hey, it's the off. It's a new season for everyone, including Triple R.
New year, new me.
So Robert Phillips says the O-line is the most important thing for me. I'm worried we haven't had continuity in preseason. What with Nate, Darnell's injury, Cody having to move from center, Tevin injured, worried. And a sad face with a frowny face. That is really the default look of Bears fans, I think, most seasons, right? The little frowny face there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's fair to be concerned. I mean, I wouldn't be overly concerned about Darnell Wright's ankle injury. I think that was I think he maybe rolled it or got stepped on or something. But we saw him 2 days later. He didn't have a brace or anything on. I think he's going to be fine. I am curious to see Darnell Wright. I mean, look, you draft a guy really high, a tackle really high, and you have high expectations for him, but he's still a rookie, and there's probably going to be some mistakes along the way. And you see how, at those positions, those tackle spots, if you're making mistakes, you're usually, people notice, you're getting exposed, and that's a problem for your quarterback. So I mean, I would expect some ups and downs with that as well. I mean, how many rookie tackles come out here and are like, all pro fantastic right away? I don't know that happens all that much. So that's a guy that I'm really curious to see. Not because I'm worried. I just want to see where he's at,
Yeah, there's been reports kind of up and down with Darnell Wright. Some things that people really like from him throughout training camp and preseason, and some things that definitely are pause for concern. And when I say pause for concern, I don't really mean long term, but this is a guy that you are slotting in as your starting right tackle on an offensive line that we have a lot of questions about. I think it's going to be up and down for him, particularly the first half of this season. I hope Bears fans are ready for that, because there are high expectations for this kid, particularly when they took him at number 8 overall, right?
Number 10. Number 10. They had number 9. They traded with the Eagles.
There's too many. I can't keep track of it.
Yeah.
Number 10. Yeah, let's see. I was trying to find back here. Rick had said no Feeney. I'd have Feeney over Carter. He's referring to Dan Feeney, who the Bears acquired for the Miami Dolphins late in the preseason.
Dan Feeney, I'm saying that based off their depth chart that they provided, which obviously, that take that with a grain of salt. They're not going to tell you everything. Dan Feeney right now is listed as the backup center, and that's the only spot he's at. It wouldn't surprise me if they go with him over Ja'Tari Carter, just because he's a veteran guy. He's played more guard than center if you look at his career. So, yeah, I could totally see Dan Feeney in there instead of Ja'Tari Carter as sort of your backup right guard, maybe left guard too, wherever you need him. But I guess I was basing that more off their depth chart. They got Ja'Tari Carter as their backup at left guard and right guard. Saying that, he didn't really play any left guard during training camp. He was mostly focused on the right side, Ja'Tari Carter. So I'd be a little surprised if they throw him on that left side. But hopefully Cody Whitehair is fine, and that's not an issue.
Robert checking in with worrying field short passes are still not accurate. This is a topic I wanted to hit on here. Just Justin Fields in general, as we head into year 3, expectations are high. there was a lot of hype during the offseason for Justin Fields and from Bears fans and really around the country. I mean, he was one of the most, he may have ended up as the most bet player to win MVP and Offensive Player of the Year
Mhm.
for sports books. Um, with that being said, there was still a considerable amount of development that needs to occur from Justin Fields in the passing game. I think you and I are both in the camp that he has the mindset and tools to do that. You just never know in the NFL. Now that you've had a chance to see him throughout the preseason and training camp, where do you feel Justin Fields is heading into 2023?
It's hard to it's so hard to know before you actually see them in week 1. I would say I have certainly tempered my expectations a little bit. I feel like there's gonna be a lot of good. There might be some bad too. It's a that's the thing about the position too is you know, it's the whole offense. I think DJ Moore is going to do really great things for Justin Fields. That connection is so apparent if you watch them in practice. DJ Moore is so good in the intermediate areas of the field. He can get open like very few receivers I've seen the Bears have, and like nobody in recent years. He's able to just stop on a dime and create some space, and then you see what he can do after the catch. You just got to get him the football, and he can make guys miss and run for big chunks of yards. So that's going to be extremely, extremely helpful. I think the bigger question is, what are you going to get out of your other guys? What are you going to get out of Darnell Mooney and Chase Claypool and those running backs who don't have a ton of experience catching passes? Khalil Herbert and Dante Foreman, and so this all has to work together. If this is going to work, I think there's plenty of reason to be optimistic about Justin. You got another year under his belt. He knows this offense really well now, and he's clearly like the alpha dog. He's the guy in charge. He knows what he's doing, and people listen to him. Um, but we need to see him make those throws. We saw glimpses of it at times last year, but you got to see him uh, connecting on the easy ones and on some hard ones here and there as well.
I'm gonna pull a White Sox comparison into this. Pull a Mark Silverman talked about the if you haven't seen that, go to shawlocal.com. Sylvie had a great column after the farce that was the White Sox introduction of Chris Getz as general manager, and talking about how far the Bears have come under Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles in just a short time in terms of not being a laughing stock. But the White Sox comparison I want to go to is there are so many question marks. You saw with the White Sox, like Luis Robert, absolute stud, breaks out, but things are falling apart around the team. And you kind of have that thing with Justin Fields could be really good this year,
Hmm.
and things could still look really crappy for this offense because, as you just pointed out, there are a lot of things we don't know. That offensive line, as we talked about already extensively today, a lot of question marks. Chase Claypool, I mean, you got to get more out of him. You gave up an incredibly high second round pick, essentially a first round pick to get Chase Claypool. You got nothing out of him last year. Here he is going into a contract year. And frankly, what you've seen so far in preseason and training camp, maybe you've seen more every day at practice, but I haven't seen a lot that makes me think that this is on a track to significantly improve quickly.
You're talking about the offense as a whole, the passing
No,
game,
no,
or are you talking about Chase?
Chase Claypool in
Yeah. Okay.
particular here.
I mean, I'll say this: Chase looked really good early on in camp when he was out there consistently. There were times where, it's kind of cliche to say, but he is almost like another tight end because he's so big. And I can think of one practice where Justin just kept throwing. Chase just kept getting to the first down marker and cutting towards the sideline, and Justin was hitting him for a first down on a couple of back to back drives or whatever, and it looked really good. He was doing good things out there, and then the injury thing, he missed so much time, and you wonder if that hurt their chemistry, if that hurt the development of the offense as a whole. We won't really know until we see it on Sunday. But I do think there's still reason to be optimistic with Chase Claypool. He's still got that insane athletic ability. He's got that size. as long as he stays healthy, which I guess is a big question, he has the potential to be a really nice piece for you. I think Bears fans should be excited. I know there's been a lot of uh, hoopla around Chase Claypool, and things didn't go well late last season, but I feel like we got to just wait it out a few weeks and see how this develops.
All right. Well, we're going to spend about 10 more minutes with you. You know what? If you're a fan of football in the state of Illinois, come back to Shaw Local's YouTube page later this evening. I'll be back on here with Jimmy Musial. We'll be doing week 3 of high school football live for Friday Night Drive, live from 8 to 11 p.m. We have our team of reporters across Northern Illinois out there. We were talking about this, Sean. I was really quickly, just the amount of talent, like it. Palatine just last week. I was looking at running back commit to running back commit Dominic Ball, Division I commit, defensive lineman junior. I'm blanking. I think Jalen Williams already with about a dozen Division I recruits or Division I offers. There's just so much talent in Northern Illinois, man. It's so much fun right now to go from high school football on Friday nights, kind of recharge on Saturday watching college football, and then dive into Bears on Sunday. And even with this Bears roster, you got so many local guys on it right now.
I know, it's crazy. 5 or 6 local guys on this Bears roster. It's fun to talk to those guys about playing for their hometowns. And you're right, Kyle. I mean, you flip on college football on Saturday, and there's a million guys from Illinois that, on any given team or wherever across the country. It's fun to follow those guys who you and I watched playing high school football a few years ago.
Yeah. So as we wrap up this edition of the podcast, let's talk about season outlook a little bit more. We've talked a lot about we've talked a lot about Bears Packers. Yeah, we've spent a lot of this offseason saying this is a team that we think is going to be around that 500 mark. Can't really be 500 nowadays in the 17-week schedule, but 8-9, 9-8,
8-1.
Yes, 8-1, 7-10. I have a hard time finding a way that this team gets to 10-7. But I mean, like if Justin Fields went nuts and if the offense is better than we expect, they could get there. But I just feel like there's more that has to go right than there's a lot more that has to go right to get to 10 wins than there is to get to 10 losses. You know what I mean?
I was just talking a few minutes ago, somewhat skeptically about whether this passing offense has improved. But you're still going to have a really good run game. They did last year. You still got Justin Fields running, when things break down. I don't think, especially looking at the schedule, which take with a grain of salt until we actually see these teams, but relatively weaker schedule than it was a year ago. I feel like the passing offense doesn't have to improve that much for this team to get to 7, 8, 9 wins. If they're merely respectable, if they're middle of the pack, you're going to be in the conversation for around 500, which puts you in the playoff hunt.
I'll say this: you need not just the passing game, you need the defense to improve. It's got to be on both sides of the ball there, and they don't have to be a top 10 defense if they can get you to the middle of the pack. If they're right around 16, 17, that's enough of an improvement that if you couple that with the passing game, yeah, this is a team that should be able to get to 7 or 8 wins. And if things go well, then all of a sudden, I do think that there is potential. You look at the upside of all these guys we've mentioned, these young players, a guy like Chase Claypool is still the untapped potential of Justin Fields. All 3 of those running back, particularly Roschon Johnson, I love what we've seen out of him so far, like the draft pick. There is certainly potential for this thing to take off quicker than we expect. It's very, very hard to predict that, though.
Yeah, it's hard to sit here 2 days before week 1 and definitively feel confident that the Bears are going to have a 10-11 win season.
For the first time since probably 2019, since the playoff, coming off of 2018, there were high expectations for 2019.
There were.
I think for the first time since then, you don't have those high of expectations, but I think it's reasonable for the first time to have expectations. You should, when we get to December, this Bears team, I'm not saying that they're going to win the division or they're going to make the playoffs, but they should be playing meaningful football games in December. Like, there should be a path that, hey, you should be like, oh, you know what? If they win 3 out of 4 here at the end of the season, bam, all right. Yeah, they can get that last wild card spot. If they're not, if they're just playing for draft position on December, when we get to that first game in December already, I'm going to be really disappointed with this team.
Yeah, if they're 3-10 or whatever going into December, that's going to be a problem. And especially, I get why Bears fans are excited. Like last year felt like, it was kind of a wash. You had fun watching Justin Fields, but I don't know if you had fun watching much else of that football team. And so yeah, there's a lot of reason to be excited, especially with the unknowns as we look ahead to this Week 1 matchup with the Packers. There's maybe a little bit of an opportunity here, Kyle. I don't know. I feel like some Bears fans are kind of like feeling that, but also afraid to say it out loud.
Well, see, I'm laughing over here because yeah, there's certainly optimism with this team, but we're still talking about Bears fans because
Yep.
even in the chat this morning, I've seen more talk about who the backup quarterback is this week between Tyson Baggett and Nathan Peterman than there deserves to be. And Robert Phillips even admitting, yep, I'm a fan, he says here, but his first comment was, if Fields struggles, enter Baggett. And like, I do wonder, like, if Justin Fields, let's say he gets off to a slow start here the first month of the season, I do wonder if we're going to start to see where fans start to turn on him a little bit now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have a hard time seeing that. I feel like they got to give him a long, long leash. Like
I agree.
this is your guy.
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on the level of struggle.
It depends on the circumstances.
Like if the passing game is struggling like it did last year, I think they're going to start to get on him a bit more. I don't think you can't look at this roster, even with the question marks, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't look at this roster compared to last year and said that they didn't help. Like Ryan Poles in the front office didn't help Justin Fields out. So
yeah,
if he struggles the first month of the season, I think the critiques are going to start to come in heavier, and I think they're going to be valid.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying they wouldn't be valid. They would be. I think it's also going to depend if they're winning games, though. Are they in these games? Can they lean on that run game enough that it doesn't really matter, that they're still hovering around 500 or whatever.
Is Justin Fields and the wide receivers making the big plays late in games? I mean, we saw that. I mean, how many games were they in last year where, one play, they probably win that game?
Yep.
Right. That's the difference now between last year and this year. They have to find a way to win those games.
Yeah, even if you're 500, if you got 1 or 2 or 3 games where like Justin Fields leads you on a game-winning drive at the end, you're going to feel really good about that.
Yeah. I think football fans have progressed to the point now where you don't need to see on-field production from quarterbacks to really just, you go back to like the Joe Flacco stuff like 15 years ago, like, is Joe Flacco elite? Like the old meme and stuff like that. With the way the game has evolved, the way fandom has evolved, I think there's enough awareness where you can people are able to eyeball someone like Justin Fields and know, right? Like, is this coming together or not? I'm trying to think of a good example of someone else over the last couple of years.
I can think of a counter example, which was like Jared Goff with the Rams those last couple of years, where like he's putting up numbers, but when you actually look at what's happening, you have questions about it.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of smart football fans who actually watch the games and look at the tape as opposed to just looking at the stat line.
I think of it as kind of like what you saw with Trevor Lawrence is a bit. Like Trevor Lawrence has started to turn that corner in that passing game, but even when he was struggling, I felt like he was making a lot of solid decisions.
Mm-hmm.
It was just getting that NFL experience. You saw that kind of take off the second half of last season. He's going to have to carry that through here into year 3 himself. There's got to be consistent progression from Justin Fields at this point. I expect it. I'm in the camp that I think he can be a superstar. I like the drive from him. I love the mental side of his game. He's just got to go out on the field and prove it, though.
Yep, it's time. The week 1 is here. It's time, and we're gonna finally see what they've been working on. And I think, I'm sure we will all overreact to it, but it will be good to have something to go off of.
It'll be good to overreact to something. Yeah. I'm tired.
I just want to overreact to something, Kyle.
Yes, absolutely. All right, well, let's get out of here, Sean. What do you got for Bears Packers week 1? Who are you taking in this one?
Oh man, everyone's gonna hate me, guys. The Packers have won 13 of the last 14. I'm going to take the Packers. You're all going to hate me. I know it. I hear it right now, and I'm sorry, but prove me wrong, Bears. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying to Justin Fields and the Bears. Prove me wrong. Go out there, beat the Packers week 1. I got the Packers. I think it'll be a close game. Like 24-21, something like that.
I was a lot more confident 3 weeks ago that the Bears were going to beat the Packers in week 1. And it's not because I feel like the Bears are a tremendously better team than the Packers. I think these are both teams that have a lot of question marks that could end up between 7 and 9 wins. But I thought the Bears were definitely catching them at an opportune time, week 1 in Chicago. The Bears have the upside of having this offense intact with Justin Fields as your starting quarterback. I don't know what you're going to get out of Jordan Love. I don't think the Packers do. And it's going to take a bit of time for them to figure that out. So I thought the Bears, had the advantage clearly in this game with the improved defense as well. The Packers defense stinks. I mean, there's just no getting around it. The Packers are going to give up points. But I'm concerned about the Bears offensive line. I really am. This is just not the way I expected this offensive line to be starting the season. I do think the Bears are able to pull out a win here. I think that 1-point game, or that 1-point line is right. It's going to come down. We might right away, week 1, find out is Justin Fields able to lead the Bears on a game-winning drive. You might find the same thing for Jordan Love, but I think this game's going to come down the wire. I'm going to stick with the Bears. I don't feel very confident in that, Sean.
No, I respect the pick though, and I feel like people in Chicago are excited about the Bears. I feel like there's a lot of optimism. Maybe this is just me zigging while everyone zags, but prove me wrong, Bears. I will happily wear it on Monday if the Bears win this game.
All right. Well, thank you everyone who joined us live this morning. If not, you can do us a favor, leave a comment on the YouTube or in the YouTube section. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us grow the channel. We'll be back with you next weekend, but we'll have live coverage all weekend long at shawlocal.com. Sean will be at Soldier Field, and then we'll be back with you early next week. Everyone enjoy the first weekend of football. We'll talk to you guys on Monday. Later.